Hey guys, I'm Ravinder and I'm a front-end developer at MaidSafe. And today we are going to develop a cross-platform mobile application on the Safe network. So before we start with the development, let's have an introduction with the Safe network and the MaidSafe. The Safe network is world's first open source, autonomous and decentralized data and communication network. It can't be censored, turned off, blocked, or controlled by any person or organization. Its mission is to provide privacy and security to all the users, and only the users has complete control of their data. For more information, you can visit safenetwork.tech and you will find how the safe network works, the fundamentals we rely upon for the development of this network, SafeCoin, and the FAQ section. For more information about the Safe network, you can visit safenetwork.tech and you can find different section related to the Safe network here. Like the basic working of the safe network, the fundamentals of the safe network. The fundamentals are like basic principles which we keep in mind when designing and developing the safe network. And the safe coin, it's a cryptocurrency which is currently not released, and hopefully you will be able to use in near future. And then you can see the timeline of different releases related to the safe network, and the FAQ section which has relatively all the questions which you can ask yourself when you start working on the safe network. And then you can start with get involvement page, and it helps you to understand how you can get started with using the safe network as a beginner, and happy safe networking. Let's have a small introduction about MaidSafe. MaidSafe are the core developers of the Safe network. It's a small team comprised of thinkers, inventors, engineers, and designers. We all at MaidSafe share a single mission, providing security and privacy for everyone. So, for more information about MaidSafe, you can visit maidsafe.net. So before we start developing our first cross-platform mobile application, let's visit hub.safedapp.organization. This is the developer website. It's called DevHub, and you can start from here if you want to develop applications on the Safe network. So you can visit Start Developing page. As you can see, it helps you to get started with Node.js, web development, Android, .NET, and Xamarin. Other than that, it has documentation page where you can see the different tutorials, available tutorials and API documentations. Then DevOps, this is basically showcase of decentralized applications on the safe network. You can see there are multiple decentralized applications which are already developed by community or made safe team, and you can visit those links from here and you can try using these DApps. And there is another page, core technology page. It basically represents the stack on which the safe network is built basically, and it has all the it is showing all the components of the safe network. And a discover page, and the discover page again helps you to get yourself familiar with the working of the safe network. So we will start with start developing page, as we want to develop a cross-platform mobile application. So it has two different sections, .NET and Xamarin. And .NET is basically developing the cross-platform mobile desktop applications on the desktop using C Sharp, and Xamarin is for mobile. So we will be starting with Xamarin now, and let's start. So we will be start developing our first cross-platform mobile application, and we will be using Xamarin Forms for that. So Xamarin Forms is basically an open source and cross-platform tool which you can use to build Android and iOS application. It also gives you option to build for Windows and Mac using C Sharp and F Sharp. And basically we will be using MaidSafe.SafeApp NuGet package, and you can open this page to see the different versions we have published for MaidSafe.SafeApp package. And this is again an open source project maintained by MaidSafe team. So you can visit safeapp underscore C Sharp. The SafeApp C Sharp is basically a .NET wrapper for SafeApp, and you can visit this link to get more information about SafeApp. The SafeApp is a part of Safe Client Libs. Safe Client Libs is basically a Rust package, or you can say Rust crate, which has all the logic required to communicate with the safe network and to perform the data operations. That basically we have simplified this solution for .NET developers creating this wrapper, and this wrapper is called is basically packaged and published as a NuGet package that is MaidSafe.SafeApp and can be fetched from the NuGet. The latest version is 0.2.1, and we basically support multiple platforms and multiple tools for the development using .NET. You can either create Android and iOS application, or you can create the desktop applications also. You can visit this URL to get more information about SafeApp C Sharp. So let's move back to our DevHub article. So now we have idea about Xamarin and our NuGet package. The next thing we will be using is our example repository. Basically, you can visit this link on GitHub, and you will see it's basically getting started .NET repository. This repository has two examples, one for desktop development and one for mobile development. And this repository basically has two branch, boilerplate and master. We will be using boilerplate, and to see the final solution you can clone the code from master branch and try running it. And also we will be covering some topics in this basically in this tutorial, and those will be basically using the NuGet package, authentication, and then doing some mutable data operation and using the apps container. So let's move back to our DevHub article, and let's start developing our first application. So to start developing our first application, you will need some tools installed in your system. One will be the Git to fetch the boilerplate code from the GitHub, and Visual Studio. You can use any edition or any version of Visual Studio, and Safe Authenticator, a mobile application to authenticate your applications on the Safe network, and beginner level knowledge of Safe Xamarin Forms. So if you have already these tools installed, we will start with fetching our code and then start editing the code. If you don't have the tools already installed, we are already providing the links to, so you can download those tools and then you can start development. To clone the repository and to use the boilerplate code, you can use these commands. So let's copy these commands and run in using Git. This will clone the repository for you, and it will move to the repository directory, and then we will be checking out our boilerplate code. Yeah, that's done. And one other thing you can do, you can just rename this. So basically, because the Android doesn't allow you more than 256 character in your path, so you may face some issue for that. So let's rename this folder for before we get that error. So now open this project, and it has desktop boilerplate code and mobile boilerplate code. So we'll be using mobile boilerplate code, and then you can open the solution in your Visual Studio. So you can go to Solution Explorer and see we have one shared code to basically share the code between Android and iOS. And we have an Android project, and we have an iOS project, and we have some tests also to run the test on Android and iOS platform. Once the solution is loaded completely, you can go to Solution Explorer, and you will see that you have a .NET Standard project to share the code between Android and iOS, and you have some test projects also to run test on Android and iOS. So we will be writing our logic into a .NET Standard, most of the logic, and then some platform specific code on Android, and some platform specific code for iOS. So now let's move back to our tutorial, and we can say the next section is using a mock network. So the first question is what is a mock network and why do we need it? So when you are using the API, either you can use mock network or you can use a test network. So mock network is basically simulates your all the network functions in your system using a mock world file. So all the data you write to the network or retrieve will be done on the mock world file itself. So the basic use of the mock network is it helps you in development and testing. So you don't have to worry about the balance consumption on your test account. So first step will be adding a build compilation symbol in your project to use the mock APIs. And if you don't use the mock this flag, you will be using the actual network or the test network. So let's move back to your Visual Studio and open your properties project properties, and then go to build, and you can add your conditional compilation symbol, and the symbol will be safe app mock, and you have to add this symbol in your .NET Standard project and your platform specific code. So you will be pasting it here for your shared code or for your .NET Standard project, and then you will be opening your Android project properties, and we will add it here, and as well as you have to add it for iOS also. So once this is done, you will see that you have a file, basically a DLL, which will be added in your project, that is called mock auth bindings. So why do you have that file? Because for the mock authentication. So if you don't add that file, you will not be able to use the mock authentication. So you can see the steps to add this flag in your project here. We have provided these steps, and also the difference, and why you can have a little information about the mock feature and how to use a mock feature. So now we are ready to use the mock network. So currently we are using the mock network, and later on we will be switching to the test network for the simplification. So let's start with creating a mock account. To create a mock account, you will need a username. You need to create a username variable, a password, and an invitation. It is an invitation token, and because it is mock, you can randomly generate the strings for the testing purpose. And to do that, you have to apply this code into your create account async function. So let's move back to Visual Studio and apply this code in your app service class. So you can go to your Visual Studio and your project and service class and app service. Either you can move it like this, or you can try searching for this. So let's move to mock authentication part, and in mock authentication part we have the create account async. In create account async we have create a mock account, so you can just copy paste your code here. So let's go back and copy our code for create account, and then you can paste it here. So either you can use some random strings for this, or we already have an random string generator function here, which you can use. It's in helpers and miscellaneous dot generate random string. So this way you can basically generate the random strings for username, password, and invitation token. And this way you will be getting, every time you will get a random location, password, and invitation token, and it will create a mock account. So that mock account will be used to perform all the data operations. So once you have your basically your mock account or your authentication account, next step will be creating an application. So let's move back to your DevHub, and you will see we are creating an auth request. So an auth request is basically an authentication request generated by an application to initialize a session. And in an authentication request, you pass some permissions and some vendor information, like who is the vendor of this application, and what is the application ID, and information related to your application. So for that, we can again copy this auth request class of the request definition from here, and put it into app service class in generate and code auth request function. So move back to your Visual Studio, and we will see there will be a function to generate the encode auth request. So to generate an auth request, we will be pasting that code here, and we will be saving this. Once we generate, get the auth request object, we again have to return the encoded auth request. So we currently are returning 0 and null, which we need to replace. And to replace, you can see we will be returning a encoded request from there. So let's replace this. Once you replace it, it's the same. It should be basically followed by, it should be proceeded by a blank line. So you got a blank line, and it is returning you basically one a tuple, and the tuple has basically one int and one string. The int is basically your ID, auth request ID, and the string is your encoded request. So once you get your auth request, so next part will be getting it authenticated from your account. So let's see what is the next step. Authentication, yeah. In authentication, what we are doing, we will be passing our encoded request, which we generated in the next first previous step, and we will be passing a value either true or false. True will be like authenticating your object, authenticating your request, and false will be denying that request. So for that, you have to you have to basically copy and paste this code for authentication into your test create test app class function in your app service. Create test app, and we already have comment here, and you can paste it. So once you paste it, you will see there is two return statement basically, which we put to prevent the compilation error, so we can remove this first second one. And what actually it is doing, it is basically encoding generating your encoded request from the function which we just uh, basically we added the definition for previously here, and then it will be decoding our encoded request, and then it will be encoding the response with allow. True means it's allowing a request. Also, it is showing you the comments which you can see for all the function, like decodes a given encoded IPs request. These are basically API documentation to help the developers in development. So once your this process is done, it will be returning a session, and that session we will be using to do all the network operations on in this application. So let's proceed and see what is the next step in this tutorial. And here we have completed the authentication part. So next step will be creating a mutable data. So before we create a mutable data, you can read about mutable data, immutable data. Like these are two different type of data types which you can in the safe network. Basically, a mutable data is a key value store where you store your data on the network in basis of pairs of key and value, and it can be either private data or public data. And a mutable data is associated with the type tag, and type tag helps you to differentiate between two mutable data which are located at the same address space. Also, you can visit the discover page either using this link or from the menu bar to understand the difference between both of these data types. Also, the data on the network is stored using a 256-bit address. So you can visit this Medium post to understand how we locate the data on the network. So once you go through this introduction, then we can start developing, creating a mutable data and storing the values. So in that one, the first step will be creating a private mutable data. A mutable data either can be created on a random location or on a specific location. So we will be creating a random private mutable data. Basically, it will be a random location. And so to create a mutable data, you need a type tag, and you will be calling a random private async API from our SafeApp package. So let's copy this code, and we have to implement inside create mutable data function in app service class. So we already have our inside app service class. So we will be seeing a reason called mutable data operation, and we will be pasting this code into create mutable data function. So once we paste this function, then you will see there is another thing, another command called insert permission set. So let's see what is our next step. It is permission set. So basically, why do we need a permission set, and what permission sets help you with? So the permission set is basically a list of permissions associated with the mutable data. So we will be copying this code, and we will paste this code into our next under our next comment. So you can see basically we are creating a permission set, mutable data permission set, where it is specifying that we are allowing a user to insert the data, read, update, and delete the data. So for that, we will be creating a permission handle, and we will be getting the keys using crypto.app public sign key. Basically, these are the public signing keys for this application, and we will be associating this permission set with this public key. So let's see. To associate it with public sign key, we are doing mdata permission dot insert async, and we are associating this permission handle with the public sign key handle and the permission set. So once you do this, you will be seeing there is another command, put the data on the network. So basically what we are doing, we are creating a mutable data and a permission set and permissions handle, and associating that with a public sign key. But this data is currently held in your memory. So to push that data or commit that data onto the network, we will be adding one more line of code. So now you can see the code is complete to create this mutable account through the network. So we are calling put API function. So this what put API function does, it basically commits your mutable data onto the network, and we are passing our mdata info which we created previously, and permission handle which we created to associate your public sign key with your permission set, and we are passing one more variable that is called native handle.empty entries. So we are passing this empty entries. It means that currently this mutable data doesn't hold any key value pair or any entry, so which we will be adding in next steps. Now we have completed this code to create a mutable data on the network. So next step will be doing some operations on this mutable data, like adding some entries, updating and deleting. So next step is basically add entries to mutable data. So an entry is again a key value pair, and we can insert multiple entries. And mutable data currently has a limit of 1,000 entries or a size of 1 MB. So to create a mutable data entry, we will be creating a new mdata entry action, and then we will be having a key and then a value, and basically we are encrypting this key value pair using our mdata info, because this mdata info holds your private keys to encrypt or decrypt your mutable data entries. And then we are inserting this mutable data entry into your mutable data. So whenever you do some operation on mutable data, it is basically done in the memory. And to reflect those changes on the network, you have to call mutate entries async function. So let's copy this code, and we will be adding this code into add item async. So let's paste this here. So you will see we are basically getting an object of to do item, and we are basically doing a serialization. So it's basically a binary serialization, because we can't put objects on the network. It will be in byte format. So we have already have the helper function to serialize and deserialize these items from to do items to byte array, and byte array to do item. So we can encrypt our key value pairs using encrypt entry key async function and encrypt entry value async function. So we will be encrypting our key, encrypting our value, and then insert uh, our key and value into the handle mutable data handle, and then mutate these entry on the network. We can insert multiple entries also. So currently, because we are adding one item at a time from the mobile application UI, so that's why we are just adding one entry and mutating that entry on the network. So you can read this information about object serialization, deserialization, and encryption, and encrypting the key value pair and decrypting key value pairs. Now we have multiple entries. Suppose you have added multiple key value pairs from your UI to your mutable data on the network. So of course, next step will be reading those key value pairs from the network. So for to read the mutable data entries from the network, we are basically gonna get our items, and then we will be decrypting those. Otherwise, of course, we will not be able to make sense of the data which we fetched from the network, because it was encrypted. So we will be using our mutable data info again to decrypt using the same keys which we used for the encryption, and we will be returning those to do items from the function, and then those to do items will be displayed on the UI. So to start with reading the mutable data entries, copy this line of code basically, and here in this line of code, basically what we are doing, we are creating a list of to do items. And next step will be we will be reading we will be basically retrieving our mutable data entries from the network, decrypt those, and add those entries basically into to do items, and then return these to do items from this function. So let's see the next line of codes, and we will copy this line of code and we will be pasting retrieve in the try block. And basically what we are doing, we are getting a handle for the mutable data entries to read the entries from the network. And another next step is we are doing getting the list of entries using the mutable data entry handle. So you once you get the entries, basically these all entries are encrypted entries. So once we get the encrypted entries, we need to decrypt those and deserialize those entries, because those are again in byte array format, and we need to convert those entries into to do items. So we are we will see this line of code, why we are using this line of code in next steps. So first thing first, let's decrypt the key. So we have function decrypt async function. We will be passing our mdata info and our key, and then we will be decrypting our value using content function, property in your entry.value.content, and then deserialize that byte array into your to do item, and then add that to do item into your to do items list. So basically now we have a list of to-do items, and we need to return that to-do item list from this function. Either you can copy paste, or you can just convert this null to return to-do items. So this way we are reading our entries from the network, decrypting those and returning those entries. So we can display these list of to-do items in our application UI. So let's see our next step in this tutorial, and let's open our DevHub. So next step will be updating and removing the entries from our mutable data. So let's first copy paste this code, and then we will see what this code is actually doing. And it needs to be added into your update item async function in your app service class. And we will paste for remove entries also. And then we will see what we are doing in this code. So let's see update item first. So in update item, we are getting a to-do item, and basically we are creating new empty entry action, and then we are encrypting our key, and we are using our key because it's a key value store. So we need to understand which key, which value we are updating for which key basically. So we get a key and we get a value, new value, and we are encrypting our key and we are updating our new value, and we are also fetching our current value, and we are fetching our current value to get the current version of your mdata entry. So to update, we will be passing our empty entry and action handle, which we created here, and our key and our updated value. And one more we are passing, which basically you can see we are adding a +1. So if you hover over this update async function, you will be seeing add an update action in the transaction to update an existing entry. And the last parameter is ulong version. So what we are doing, we are fetching our value, and then we are incrementing the version number by 1. So this way our mdata entry will be updated with the new value, which has the key, this one, and the version will be incremented by 1. And then we are mutating this entry to reflect the changes on the network. Same thing we are doing for update, delete, or you can say remove also. We are creating new mdata entry action. We are encrypting the key to again to check which key we have to update the value to fetch the version of your current value. And then we are doing a delete operation, and we are passing our entry action handle and our key to delete, and the version +1, and then we are mutating, and we are mutating it to reflect the changes on the network. If you don't mutate it, it will not be reflected on the network. And we are updating this version. Let's talk about the next topic in our tutorial, and that is making use of apps container. So apps container is a private mutable data which an application requests for when generating an authentication request. And this apps container can be used by the application to put its own private mutable data. And why do we need an apps container? We need an app container so it can save the state of your application. Suppose you have a application where you are generating some data, and it's a random private mutable data, and next time your application need to know where it generated that data, like the keys and the location of that mutable data. So for that purpose we use the apps on container. So we can just copy this code and paste into store md info function in your app service class. So store md info function, here we have store md information function. So what we are actually doing in this code, we are serializing our md info to store the state of our mutable data. So next time we don't have to create a new mutable data, we will be able to fetch our existing mutable data and add more entry to the same mutable data, or do the operation on our existing mutable data. So we are basically encrypting, serializing and encrypting and storing our mdata info. And in next function we are basically fetching our mutable data info from apps container. So we can put that code here. So this code will retrieve our apps on container, and then it will fetch a mutable data info, and then it will deserialize that mutable data info, and it will create a md info object for you. So now we have function to store our mutable data and retrieve our mutable data info from apps on container. Next step will be versioning immutable data. So versioning, why do we need versioning, and how we can use this concept in our mutable data? So in mutable data, whenever we do an update operation or remove operation, we increment the version by one. That's what we actually implemented in our update and remove function uh, here in update function and in remove function. So that way we always know what is the current version of our value or our mutable data entry. And there is one more thing. So whenever you do a remove operation on a mutable data, the key is not removed from mutable data. Only the value of the key is removed, as we are stating it here in our tutorial also. So the problem is, whenever you will try to fetch your mutable data entry next time, you will get a key, but the value will be empty. So you can get exceptions in your basically in your application. So that's why we are doing this check in our get items function that we skipped previously. So if you see your get items function, we are doing a check, and the check is basically if the content dot count, it is checking if the content length is 0. If content length is 0, we are not trying to decrypt it, because it will give us runtime exception. So that way you can you can take advantage of versioning in your applications when you are using mutable data. So let's see what's the next step. And it says like, now you can run the application and authenticate and work with to-do items in list. So it means we have already completed the our implementation of safe to-do application on the mock network. So let's try it running on Android platform. You can use any emulator or your device. Just make sure you are using x86-64 platform architecture or ARM, because SafeApp library doesn't support x86 x86 architecture. So we have our emulator running here. So let's it run, and then we will see. We will try to use our application, and it's compiling. And here we have our application. So this application is showing that application is running in mock mode, and it has authentication button. So you can authenticate. It will do a mock authentication. I mean, it will create a mock authentication file, and then it will store your data there. So add, we are now adding a new item, and you can add details. And then to save it, we can just do this, and see we have one item in our to-do list. That way you can try adding item 2, and lot of information you can try to add. So that way you can keep adding your items into your to-do list, and there is a check. If you can perform this check whether the item, your to-do item has been completed or not. And also you can try updating or removing. So if you try to update your item in your list, you can just update the text of that list. You can't update the key, basically, because we are using the title as a key. And this is for remove and update. If you do an updated operation, next time you can see that your detail of your to-do item has been updated. And you can remove also this item to delete it from the list. If you delete this, it will be deleted from the network also. And you can use this application. Is currently this application is running in mock mode, and we will be trying to run this application on iOS also. Let's try to run our application on iOS devices. You can just select the iOS from example, or you can set it from the solution also and your project, and then you can set as a startup project. So once you do this, you have the option either to run it on simulator or iPhone. We are developing on Windows platform, so I'm using remote iOS simulator. If you're developing on iOS, you can either use your phone to run this application, or your iPhone simulator in your Mac machine. So let's run this on your iPhone simulator. So it will compile and it will deploy this in your remote simulator. So let's wait to launch the launch the application. Basically, once it is completed, it will install your application in your iPhone simulator and it will launch the application. Let's wait it to load your application. So as we see, as we saw same thing in Android also, we have a mock written here. Basically, it's again showing whether your application is running against mock version or non-mock version of APIs, and we have authentication option. So we can authenticate our application. It will be a mock authentication, and then we have add item button, which we can use to add item one into our list. And we can add details also. We have item one and details one. This is our first item in our to-do list, and we can then try adding item two in our list. So now we got two items, and same way as Android, we can try marking our item completed, and it will show a green check on the item which has been already completed. And same as Android, we can try updating our item description, and we can also try removing our item from the list. So that way we saw that our application is using the mock network, and it is running on Android and iOS both. So our to-do application is working fine on both the platforms, Android and iOS, using mock authentication and mock world file. Our next step will be connecting our application to the live network or test network. To do so, we will be removing our SafeApp mock flag. And another another application we will be needing is Safe Authenticator. So Authenticator is mobile application which you use to authenticate your other applications to enable those applications to communicate with the safe network. We will be installing our Safe Authenticator mobile application on Android and iOS both, and then we will be doing an IPC communication process. And for that, we currently are using URLs. To do network operation on the test network, we need to remove our flag, the safe app mock flag, which we added for the safe network. We will be removing it for our .NET Standard project, and then for our Android and iOS project as well. So we'll remove it, and also for iOS. So we will be doing an IPC communication between our authenticator application and our to-do application. So to do that IPC communication, we are currently using URLs. So we are generating a URL from our to-do application, and then we are opening that URL in our application. So basically, we will be copying this code and paste it into process non-mock authentication function in app service. So if you will find a reason in your app service class, that reason is network authentication, and we will paste this code in process non-mock authentication. So here we are generating an encoded request, and then we are creating a URL and then opening that URL. Once you open this URL, in your authenticator application, you will get a authentication request, and it will prompt you to allow that request or deny. If you allow that request, you will be able to communicate with the safe network. Means your to-do application will be able to communicate with the safe network. If you deny it, you will not be able to connect with the safe network. To get the response back from the Safe Authenticator mobile application, we have to follow some extra steps. These steps are platform specific, and we have to perform different operation on Android and iOS respectively. So first we will look at the Android. So for Android, we will use intent filter, and what intent filter will help us with that whenever your authenticator you allow or deny your request on authenticator, your authenticator will try to open a URL, and that URL is basically your safe to do applications URL. We will be processing the response which you got from your authenticator. For that, we are adding a new function called handle app launch. In handle app launch function, we are getting the URL which your authenticator used to open your safe to do item application. So safe to do, basically this URL has the response from your authenticator application, and we are passing this response to our app service class to handle URL activation function. And next step will be doing the same operation for iOS. But the iOS doesn't have, we don't use the intent filter function in iOS. For iOS, we will be using URL type registration feature. To do that, either you can use your UI editor or you can use your XML editor. We will be using our UI editor. So you have to go to your iOS solution, and then you have to go to your info.plist. So let's see that how to implement that. Go to your iOS project, info.plist, and we will be, you can double click on this one. So once you do a double click, you have to go to advanced and then URL types. So we'll go to advanced and then URL types, and you are seeing there is no value in identifiers, URL scheme, and none. So we will be adding an identifier. You can just copy paste from the tutorial, and the URL schema. This URL schema is basically the URL which authenticator will use to open your to-do application. And in the role, we will be putting viewer only. So once you do it, save it, and then you can close your info.plist file. And same as Android, we have to override our open URL function or open the activity function in your app delegate class. So we'll go to our app delegate class and we will override open URL method here. Here also we are doing the same thing as Android. We are getting a URL which has the response from authenticator, and we are passing this response to our app service class to handle URL function. So now we have our URL response which we got from Safe Authenticator mobile application for Android and iOS platform. Now we have to initialize a new session using that information. So for that, we can just copy this code and paste, and then we will see what this code actually is doing. So let's paste this code first. And so first thing we are doing, we are getting the data from that URL. This data doesn't have the host field. It will be just the response you got from the authenticator. And then we are decoding that response which we got from the authenticator. And then we are just initializing our new session for to do data operation functions. So let's see, we don't have another step. It means we have already completed our authentication process for the live network. So let's try running it on the live network. We will be authenticating using Safe Authenticator mobile application, and the operations will be now performed on the Alpha 2 network or the test network. So first step will be having to install the Safe Authenticator mobile application in your uh, device or in your simulator. So we can go to prerequisites to install to get the authenticator and install. You can just click this link on the GitHub, and you will see in release you have the latest authenticator application. So you can download this APK and then drag and drop it on authenticator to install it. And for iOS, we currently don't ship the built version of your authenticator. For that, you can go to code and then clone it and install it in your iPhone simulator or your device. I have already installed the authenticator in this Android emulator, and I already logged in. So you just have to install it from releases and log in into that. And now we will try running our application on Android device on to see the test network authentication and to perform the mutable data operations. So let's run the application on Android emulator. It will take some time to compile all of your code and deploy your application on an Android device. So now you can see this time application is showing non-mock. It means the application is running in non-mock mode only. And when you will press this authentication button, the application request will be sent to the authenticator application instead of doing a mock authentication. So now you got safe to do is requesting access. Basically, this authenticator is showing that your application is requesting the access for app's own container only, and it will be able to do read, insert, update, delete, and manage permission operations. And you can allow it to establish a session in your safe to do application. So you got a response back from your safe authenticator, and you will see I have already some items in my safe to-do list. So you can try adding new items into your to-do list, and you can try saving it. And this time these operations are done on the test network, and you can perform an update or delete operation also. We saw that we are able to do all the operation which we did on safe test network, on the safe mock network. We are able to perform all the operations, and our application is working fine on Android platform. So next step will be running the test on, running our application on the iOS. If you guys have any question regarding safe network, you can visit safenetworkforum.org. It is a safe network community, and you can easily post your questions here, and you can discuss with the wide community. And if you have development related question, you can visit forum.safedev.organization, and you can post your development related questions here. Hopefully you guys are able to go through this tutorial, and soon we will be developing some cool DApps on the safe network. So you can also list your application in DevHub in the DApp section. So once you have your application, please post your detail of your application and the link for your application on either on forum.safedev.organization or SafeNet forum, and we will list your application on our DevHub page. Thank you.